you should be able to see my screen, managing both sides of a sale within a single transaction. That is our topic today. And what we'll really go over is some folks don't realize that you can actually store both sides when you've got both the buying and the selling side in a single transaction, so that you can, the listing and the buying side, so that you can manage those together. Okay, so let's hop over to Pipeline. And I'm going to go into a transaction where we've got dual-sided. And the way that you define whether a transaction is dual-sided is simply by adding an agent to both sides. So here I've got someone on the listing and the selling side, right? And then the system will take it from there to help you manage what happens to each side, what information, what docs, what tasks, etc. each side is able to see, so that they're able to manage what they need really, but not see any more than they're supposed to see. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to edit this transaction just so that you can see here that I've assigned an agent on either side, both the listing and the selling side. And then, like I mentioned, from there, the system will allow you to manage what happens for each of those sides. And the way that it does that is through 4 different means. One is the docs, visibility and security for the docs. Same for the tasks, for the notes, and for received messages. So let's dive into each one of those. So on this transaction, let me head back over to the main page here. The first is the docs. Now, whenever a doc is added to a transaction, it necessarily has to be assigned a permission category. So in this case, office docs, listing docs, sale docs, etc. And I'm going to edit one of these just so that you can see the list of permission categories here, right? So again, whenever it's a doc's assigned to a transaction, one of these must be assigned, and there's a little description of what visibility each one will allow underneath the title. So sale will allow the doc to be visible to listing and selling agents on the transaction, and also office staff. Office staff can see any of these categories. But again, just selecting the one that's appropriate for the particular doc, that way you're specifying which agent, which side of the transaction should have visibility to this particular doc. Okay, so that's the first level. Also, tasks. When you set visibility for a task, so when an admin hovers over this visibility icon here, they can specify which type of agent can see this task. So listing agents, selling agents, or both, or admins if that's something that they shouldn't see. So all of these both allow you to have security on this information so that the wrong person doesn't see it, but also it reduces clutter so that you don't have this information out there, particularly for tasks that are just causing noise for the particular side because they don't need to see it, okay? And then the third way that you provide security or limit access is through the notes down here, the notes and sent emails. So whenever I'm sending a message to someone, either externally or internally, I've got the option to make this note private. So if I know if I'm on the selling side and I don't want the listing side to see this, I can make this note private, and that way only myself, the recipients, and the admin staff will be able to see the note once it appears down below. Okay. And then the last way is through received messages. So when messages are sent to a transaction's mail drop address, if an admin sends a message to that, let me hop over here. Admins can see any messages that are listed on here. Agents can only see those messages that they sent themselves. So that way, if the listing agent sends a doc to this particular, a message to this particular transaction, the other side will not see that, the other agent on the other side. Okay. All right. So those are the 4 ways to secure each particular side from the other side, and again, give access where it's appropriate so that they can do what they need to do. Now, what are the benefits of maintaining both sides in the same transaction? Because again, some people will actually separate those, but you want to keep them together for a few different reasons. One is obvious, to save time, right? You don't have to create 2 separate transactions. And then also efficiency. If you've got two separate transactions being maintained, then you may get misinformation in one, information may be missing in another, etc. So having those together makes it more efficient. And also when people are searching for them, there's not any confusion regarding which, whether there's a particular transaction and not the other. Do I add it to this transaction or to the other, etc. So it eliminates a lot of confusion by going ahead and combining those into one. On the system side, there are several benefits as well. One is that, remember, in order to define whether a transaction is a dual-sided or not, all you need to do is specify an agent on each side, right? The system takes it from there. So the system, when I'm looking, for example, at my transactions list here, let me hop over to this tab. When I'm looking at my transactions list, the system auto-detects whether I've got the listing side designated by this L, or the buyer side, I don't see any here with just a B, or the listing and buying sides. Okay, so the system auto detects and displays here, as well as a few other places, which side of the transaction I have. So nice at a glance view here, but without any extra effort for me having to actually say I have the listing side. Again, it's just smart enough to know that you've got the listing agent, so you must have the listing side. Okay. Also, whenever I'm filtering throughout, I will typically have the ability to filter by side. So I can say, show me all of the listing side, selling side, or both sides. Okay, and then search. And so it'll show me all of those. So filtering, again, based on that auto-detected side that you've got. And then the system will also consider which side of the transaction you have throughout the system for several different reasons. Some of the big ones are when you're setting up your checklist to be auto-assigned. You've got the ability to assign a checklist in addition to what status it is and what transaction label it has. You can also specify which side you want that checklist to be auto-assigned for a particular rule. So if I say always assign a checklist when it's in the listing status and it's a residential property and I've got the listing side, okay? So it just gives you an additional level of control to assign those checklists exactly when you want them to be assigned, okay? And then also, like I said, just throughout the system, you'll have the ability to view whether which side of the transaction you've got, and in most cases, filter on those, whether you're on your unassigned page, unreviewed page, etc. Okay. And then the last area where the system is impacted is under reports, typically the commission reports. So if you're running a particular commission report, there we go. So you can filter on this one based on side. And then in I believe our next release or two, you'll be able to filter all of these other reports on side as well. Okay. And that's it for managing your sides in a single transaction.